Hello, good day guys. My name is Albert R. Salazar. We're going to talk about today engine system problem. First we have here table of content. Okay. A, air induction and exhaust system. B, fuel system. C, cooling system. And D, we have lubrication system. So ito mga pag-uusapan natin dito sa ating topic for today. Okay, punta tayo sa ating unang pag-uusapan. Okay, first is we have air induction and exhaust system. So, the intake and exhaust system are critically parts of the internal combustion engine. The intake system ensures that clean, dry air is supplied to the engine. Clean, dry air is essential for proper combustion and a long-lasting engine. It takes only a tablespoon of two of the entering the engine through the intake system to ruin an engine. So, ang sabi dito is, yung dirt daw na papasok sa engine natin, parang tablespoon lang, kakutsara lang daw, di ba? Maliit lang. Na pwedeng makasira doon sa intake system natin pag napasukan ng dirt o dumi, di ba? Okay, next tayo. So, next is the intake system must provide a sealed passageway to combustion chambers to ensure that no contaminants leak into the system and that no air is allowed to bypass the airflow sensor. Okay, so next is the intake system also controls the amount of air entering the engine by use of a throttle plate, which is how engine RPM and power are controlled. Next is the exhaust system provides a path for the burned exhaust gases to safely exit the engine and travel out the rear of the vehicle. So next is the exhaust system provides a method of reducing the noise from power pulses and includes emission in the exhaust stream. If exhaust gases cannot leave the engine easily, then air will not be able to enter the engine easily. An efficient free-flowing exhaust system will assist the engine in creating maximum power with minimal emission. Okay? So, inspecting the throttle body and induction system naman. So, the throttle body and induction system ensure that the engine gets airflow into the cylinders. The throttle body allows control of engine RPM. So, induction system gasket leaks. So, we have here engine performance problem will result. So, some engine vehicles use a MFA or MUF sensor to send airflow information to the PCM. The PCM uses this sensor and information to accurately deliver fuel. Okay, so next is if air leaks are present in induction system, downstream of the MAP sensor, the sensor will not be able to measure the air coming into the engine. So PCM use of sensor info. So we have here two. Okay, so additional air is sometimes referred to as false air. And PCM will not deliver enough fuel based on the MAP signal and the engine will not tend to run lean. So, ways to taste for air leaks naman tayo, okay? Mga ways para matest natin kung may air leak ba. So, using a substitute fuel such as acetylene, propane, or carburetor cleaner to artificially enrich the mixture of the point of the leak. And using a smoke machine to fill the intake system and show any external leak. And using an electronic stethoscope or piece of heater hose to listen for and pinpoint the leak. Yun yung parang ginagamit ng mga doktor, di ba? Yung pinapakinggan yung heartbeat, right? So next tayo. So ito, meron tayo ditong picture. So finding a leak by enriching the mixture. So to find a leaking intake manifold gasket, a technician can use acetylene, propane, or carburetor cleaner to enrich the mixture. So yan, basta nakikita natin picture. Okay, next tayo. So, if an intake gasket is leaking, the vacuum will pull the gas into the intake manifold and engine RPM will decrease or smooth out. So, if the engine has idle control system, the RPM may not change much except slightly when leak is uncovered and fuel is pulled away. Okay, so you may need to disable the system or hold the throttle open just enough that the control system is not controlling the idle. Okay? So leaks can also happen in the ductwork, hoses, and diaphragms that are connected to the intake manifold, creating a false air condition. Okay? So, next tayo. Okay, so, while the utility and propane may still find the leak, a smoke machine is unavailable. Smoke machine pushes smoke at low pressure out of hoses into a intake manifold. Can be used to fill entire intake system with smoke. Right? So using smoke machine naman, if any leak smoke will leak from inside system to outside, anywhere the smoke is leaking from is an air leak. Highly intensity light can make the smoke more visible man daw. Okay, so next is checking idle control operation. Okay, so idle speed of engine is controlled by PCM through an idle air control motor or valve or by an electronically controlled throttle. So the PCM is programmed to control idle speed based on the different operating conditions sensed by the input sensor. So input include RPM, the engine coolant temperature, the power steering pressure switch, and the air conditioning switch. Next tayo. So engine speed can surge if engine sensor inputs are out of range or if vacuum leak is present. Then the scan tools indicate what is happening with the idle control. So next is idle control will display counts from 0 at fully closed to 140 at fully open. And starting the engine or a vehicle without a vacuum leak will result in the idle count showing around 20. So, pag nag-start tayo ng vehicle na wala daw vacuum leak, ang mag-result sa idle na ito is nasa around 20 lang. Around 20 lang daw siya, okay? So, if a leak is present, the idle count will be lower. If the leak is bad enough, it can reach 0. Okay, so yun nga. So, pag daw may leak sa idle, pag nag-idle tayo, yung countdown na ito is 0. Okay? So, next is we have vehicles will typically display a desired ideal speed and actual ideal speed on the scan tool data. These two numbers should be very close to each other as the engine computer is trying to keep the ideal at the desired speed. The ideal at the desired speed, exhaust inspection is part of any mandatory state inspection process. Okay, so, a leak will result in possible injury or death to the passengers due to carbon monoxide poisoning. Then, most municipalities have noise ordinance limiting the amount of noise an exhaust can emit. So, may mga lugar talaga tayo na binabawasan yung mga ganito, yung katulad niyan, yung mga usok na nilalabas sa akin natin. Minsan may bawal na black smoke sa ganitong lugar. Okay, so yung mga katulad nun, yung black smoke na, di ba, bawal sa mga ganong lugar. So next tayo. So a quick test for exhaust leaks is to use a rag to block off the exhaust flow from the exhaust pipe. Okay, so yun nga, ito daw yung paraan ng quick test daw para malaman natin yung leak. Okay, so if the exhaust system is not leaking, pressure will build and force the rag out of the pipe. Okay, so if there are leaks, hissing will be heard. A mechanic's stethoscope can help pinpoint small leak during this test. Okay, so another testing option is to use smoke machine with an exhaust pipe adapter to fill the exhaust system with smoke. Then, with the engine off, any sign of smoke will pinpoint leaks in the exhaust system. Next tayo. Smoke test for leaks. Okay, mga smoke test for leaks naman. Remember that smoke will fill the cylinder of the engine on the cylinder that has an exhaust valve open. If both intake and exhaust valve are open due to overlap, then you may see smoke coming from the air cleaner assembly. This is considered normal and should not be confused with a leak from the exhaust. Okay? Good way to test integrity of the pipe is to use a large pair of adjustable pliers to squeeze the pipe. If springly or crushes easily, pipe needs to be replaced. So yun nga, pag in-squeeze daw at nasira agad, so palitan na daw yung pipe na yun. Okay, so tayo. Okay, so ito, inspecting the exhaust system for leaks. So may ipapanood sa inyong video kung paano ba mag-inspect ng exhaust system natin kapag may leaks ito. Okay?
Hello everyone, Eric the Car Guy here with another hopefully helpful video for you about auto repair. This one's about exhaust leaks. This 1997 Accord came in today and it had a definite exhaust leak in the B-pipe, as this is called. This is the pipe that runs between the catalytic converter and the muffler. And as you can see, there were some pretty sizable leaks. Even more sizable, there's supposed to be a flange here that pretty much disintegrated when I took this pipe off the vehicle. Thing is I finished putting this pipe on and it's much quieter. However, I still heard a little something. But this was not so easy to find because actually the muffler's kind of new. The pipe, this B pipe is brand new, and the pipes going before it aren't really, before the catalytic converter aren't really prone to leak. So this is a method that I employ oftentimes when I'm looking for a difficult to find exhaust leak. Just an FYI, however, is if the small exhaust leaks often show up with like a little bit of soot around the outside of the area that's leaking. So a lot of times you can just look for that black soot. So inspect the entire exhaust system, especially at these flex joints. These flex joints are famous for leaks. But you can't necessarily see them because they're hidden under this mesh. So you really sometimes have a hard time nailing down where an exhaust leak is coming from. So I'm going to show you what I do in order to, well, first, grab a buddy because you may need two people to do this. But this is a pretty easy, straightforward way of finding those difficult to find exhaust leaks.
Now before you get started looking for the leak in earnest, it's probably a good idea to jack the vehicle up so you can get a good view of the exhaust system. Now, in addition to my jack, I also have it supported by jack stands in both the front and the back here. So I'm definitely well supported. But I wanted to show you my lovely work that I just completed. But this is the catalytic converter. Normally it has some shields around the outside that are currently missing. And then there's some more of the exhaust up there. But the idea of this is to get a good overview of the exhaust system so that way you can inspect the entire thing. And now I'm going to show you the trick. Next, you want to start the vehicle up. Now I'm sure you can hear that this exhaust system doesn't sound that loud. It's not that loud at all, really. But there is a leak. And I'm going to show you how I found it. You can see our muffler is also fairly new. But I just take a rag, a regular shop rag, and push it into the exhaust. And when I do this, this will make any leaks more apparent. You'll be able to hear them a lot better. So you may need a buddy to look around while you put this rag in here. You can hear a small leak up there at the front of the muffler, which may be the weep hole for the muffler, so that's normal. By the way, mufflers do have small holes in them to allow water to come out. So don't think that small hole's a leak because it's supposed to be there. Okay, here's that hole on the back of the muffler that I was talking about. And it's a weep hole, and it's there to basically allow this moisture to drain out, as you can see that it's doing. Water is a natural byproduct of combustion, and it tends to build up in the exhaust system. So they put this weep hole here to allow that water to drain out. If it didn't, your muffler would fill up with water, which number one isn't good, and number two, it would probably rust out from the inside a lot worse than it does. So if you see these little holes, don't be concerned because they're supposed to be there. But I'm going to put you up toward the leak so you can hear the difference. I'm hoping you can hear that because I can hear it coming out of this area by the exhaust, especially when I rev the engine. In fact, I'll pull this cover off so we can get our eyes on it. Well, I'm going to admit that I didn't find what I expected to find, which was some kind of crack in this manifold here. Actually, what I'm finding is it seems to be a leak right here where the manifold comes in contact with the downpipe. But once again, I'll rev it up for you so you can hear it. If you could feel it, if you could feel through the video, you could feel it coming out right in this area, just underneath the O2 sensor. So I may just need to swap out a gasket and life will be good.
Well, bottom line point being is that an easy way to find hard to find exhaust leaks is with your trusty friend the rag. in the tailpipe. That will force the exhaust out of whatever is leaking, and it should be easier for you to hear / find. Also look for those little black sooty places. I'm going to try tightening up these fasteners on this exhaust manifold, and if that doesn't work, I'm going to throw a gasket in there and see how that works.
I'm very happy to report that all I had to do was tighten the fasteners up.
It was able to help me find the leak with this trusty rag. I don't know how well you were able to hear it when I was applying the rag and unapplying the rag, but you can also feel exhaust leaks like I can feel this one. So, you know, just sort of hover your hand around the area and you can actually feel the exhaust leaking out many times. Just useful information, I hope, to you. So, I am Eric the Car Guy, Google+, Facebook, and Twitter. You can find me there, and also at ericthecarguy.com. Anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm there for you. And in fact, if you have car questions, head on over to the forum. We would love to help you there. Anyway, Eric the Car Guy. Till next time, be safe, have fun, stay dirty. Catch you later.
Okay, so napanood na natin kung paano mag-expect ng exhaust system leaks, kung paano ba ang procedure niya. Okay, so ang next naman is performing an exhaust back pressure test naman. So may video lang ako papanood sa inyo kung paano ba isagawa itong exhaust back pressure test. Okay?
This is going to be a video on engine back pressure testing. Back pressure testing is important. You got to every engine has to have a little bit of back pressure, and so we need to be able to test it, see if the exhaust is restricted or whatever the case may be. There's a couple of different ways that I'm going to show you how to do this, and we'll go ahead and get started. First, I want to show you the tools that you will need in order to do a back pressure test. So the tools that I have are, first of all, if you have access to it, you can get a back pressure gauge. Now the back pressure gauge is going to be something similar to this. It measures in inches of water, so it's very, very small pressure. And it comes as a kit, usually, that have these adapters that you can actually install into the exhaust. And I'll show you in a minute where I've installed one in our trainer engine exhaust. And then it also comes with adapters like this one here that will go in place of the oxygen sensor. So you take the oxygen sensor out, you screw this in, and then you can hook up your gauge to the adapter and measure the back pressure. Or if you don't have access to these tools, all you really need is a 3x5 card, and you'll be able to do a reasonable back pressure test to see whether or not there's a misfire or something like that going on in the car. So let's take a look at this engine down here. This little piece right here, that screw in the tailpipe, is where I've installed the adapter for the back pressure testing. And so that's where we're going to hook up the gauge to do the back pressure test. Okay, I've removed the screw and I'm going to install the adapter. Now if you notice on this adapter, the threads are very, very small on it. So when you install an adapter like this, you need to make sure that you are very careful and don't over torque it. The adapter is made out of brass, and that is a very small screw adapter to it, and you can easily over torque it and break it, and then it's difficult to get out. So what we're going to do is we're just going to screw it into the exhaust, and really hand tight is all it really needs to be, and that'll be tight enough that we can actually get a reading on it. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to hook up the back pressure gauge, and so it's just a little bayonet fitting that goes on there like that. And here's our back pressure gauge. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to start the engine up and we're going to check the back pressure on this engine. Okay, if you notice, the back pressure didn't move a whole lot. Doesn't need to be a whole bunch of back pressure. As long as you're within the green here, you should be okay. And if you notice on our last gauge reading, the needle was fluctuating quite a bit. and that was because I had a misfire set in the engine. So I have fixed the misfire, and we'll be able to see what the back pressure looks like now with no misfire. Notice the needle wasn't moving at all. We're going to take a look at the back pressure gauge while I rev the engine up a little bit, and you can see the back pressure actually moving. See, we're just off the 0 now, so we're not quite at 1 pound. Good back pressure is usually less than 3 pounds pressure. So if you notice on the gauge here, it comes up to 3 and then it turns red over there. So you want to make sure that you're less than 3 pounds, and we didn't even get up to 1.25 pounds, so that's actually okay on this engine. Okay, we'll say that we don't have the fancy back pressure gauge. We're working at home. We want to do a back pressure test with just a 3x5 card. The 3x5 card, what you're going to do is you're going to start the engine, and you're going to place the card right up against the tailpipe, and the card will puff out every time the piston fires. So each one of the pistons, so it'll tap back and forth like this. But if the engine's running okay, it'll be just kind of an even light tapping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it looks like without a misfire, and then we're going to put a misfire in the engine and see what it looks like then. So I'm going to start the engine. We're going to place the 3x5 card. You notice we got a pretty good misfire right there. So we already have a misfire in this engine. And if you remember from yesterday, or from the last video I did, we did have one cylinder that wasn't contributing in the power balance test. So that makes sense that this one would have a misfire. Let's go find an exhaust that doesn't have a misfire. For convenience sake, we're just going to look at my motorcycle. So we'll look at the motorcycle exhaust here. I'm going to start the engine, and then I'll put the 3x5 card in front of the exhaust. Engine's running. Put the 3x5 card up here. You notice how it just pushes out and there's very little flutter on it. You can still see where the engine or the pistons are going up and down, that little flutter, but it's nothing like that engine in the classroom was. So that gives you a good indication right there that all the cylinders are firing in this engine. So that concludes engine back pressure test. So again, to recap, the purpose of a back pressure test is to make sure that you don't have a clogged engine, or clogged exhaust, I should say, and also to make sure that you don't have any misfires and that all cylinders are contributing.
Okay, so napanood na natin kung paano ba isagawa si exhaust back pressure test. So punta na tayo sa ating next na pag-uusapan. Meron tayo ditong fuel system naman, okay? So if you've been experiencing problems related to your car's fuel system, we can help you diagnose the problem and get it. Maybe you notice your fuel economy has taken a turn for worse, or your car performance has started to suffer. Check the 5 common problems and their symptoms below. If any of them are consistent with the problem you've got on your car. So meron tayo ditong 5 common problems or symptoms para malaman natin kung may problem ba yung ating fuel system or ating car. Okay, so next. First, we have a neglected fuel filter. So if the fuel filter gets too clogged over time, that can starve the engine for fuel and cause it to run lean, as in problem number 4, or it gets perforated by debris. That debris can make its way to the fuel injectors and damage them, causing a potential leak like in the problem number 3. So yung 4 kagaya na sinabi ko and si number 3, mamaya madadaanan natin yun. habang i-discuss natin itong mga to, okay? So, it is a good idea to know how often to change the fuel filter on your car. On a 2018 Subaru vehicle, for instance, the fuel filter should be replaced at least every 72,000 miles. Going much longer than that, increasing your chance of developing fuel system problem. So, kailangan natin palitan talaga yung ating fuel filter. Kagaya nga doon sa Subaru, pinapalitan to every 72,000 miles. So, pag hindi natin to pinalitan at pinabayaan lang natin yun, so magkakaroon talaga ng problem. Okay? So, number 2, bad fuel sending unit. Okay, so inside the gas tank, a floating arm raises and lowers based on how much fuel is left in the system. So, kumbaga yun yung sumusukat, no? Kung ilan na lang, kung gaano lang karami. The float always sits on the top of gasoline, which is why when you go up or down a slope, the fuel level indicates by the dash can go up or way down temporarily. If the float arm gets stuck in a place due to the rust at the hinge, it might indicate your tank is empty when it's full, or vice versa. A technician will simply need to pull out the old fuel sending unit and install a new one. So, pag na-stuck yun, syempre, akala natin wala na tayong gas, di ba? Sabihin lang natin, ano, parang kakapag-gasolina ko lang kagahapon, ba't parang wala na, ba't naubos agad? So, yung pala is, na-stuck lang pala siya kasi nangangalawang na, di ba? Okay, so number 3, leaking fuel injectors naman. So, this is the opposite of the problem sa number 4. So, maladaan natin yung mamaya. Damage to a fuel injector or the fuel injector seals could allow too much fuel to be added to the engine. A broken fuel injector could leak gasoline into the engine even when it's not supposed to, throwing off the ratio as a result. This is called running rich as opposed to running lean. Okay, so you'll know your car's fuel ratio is too rich if the car emits dark black smoke. Okay? So, yun yung mga nakikita sa kalsada. Yung mga itim na usok ng sasakyan. Okay? You also experience very poor fuel economy, sluggish acceleration, and potentially many other problems. As with problem, source number 4 din daw, replacing bad fuel injector is the likely solution. So, next tayo sa number 4. So, ito ngayon, yung kanina pang binabanggit na sa number 4. So, clogged fuel injectors, barado. Okay, so particularly if you've been using low quality gasoline, foreign contaminants in the gas tank could make their way to the fuel injectors and clogged injector parts. As a result, not enough fuel be added to the engine will run lean and could display problems such as poor acceleration and performance, difficult starting the car, and possibility of backfiring and even stalling. Your fuel injector will need to be cleaned or possibly replaced. Okay. So, next tayo. Number 5. So, a bad fuel pump. If the fuel pump in your car begins to fail, gasoline may not get to fuel injector as consistently as it should. This can cause problems like a lack of power on the road, or even cause the engine to die on you as you're driving, and your fuel pump has completely kicked it, the car won't even start at all. Replacing a fuel pump is relatively easy and commonplace procedure for our mechanics at the Subaru Superstore. So kapag may bad tayong fuel pump, baka bigla na lang tumirik yung sasakyan natin habang nagdidrive, di ba? Bigla na lang, halimbawa, nasa malayong biyahe ka, sa kalagitnaan ng biyahe, tapos tumirik ka sa walang tao, syempre mahirap yan, kaya dapat lagi natin chine-check yan, pinapalitan natin yan. Okay, so next tayo. So, next is meron tayo ditong cooling system. Okay? So, cooling system naman tayo. Common failures of cooling system can require repairs ranging from simple to complex. Ito yung ating simple repair. Radiator hose clamp that has not been installed properly. So, sa complex repair naman is we have vehicle needs a new head and block because a severe pH imbalance in the cooling system has heavily corroded the internal metal. Okay? So, next tayo. Meron tayo ditong overheating has several causes naman. So, low coolant level due to a leak, a struck closed thermostat, a faulty radiator cap, clogged radiator tubes or fins, inappropriate cooling fan, water pump impeller eroded or slipping on shaft, a blown head gasket. Next is Use all sense to help diagnose problem. Okay, so kailangan natin lahat ng senses din natin para ma-solve natin yung problem o makatulong. Then, check level of coolant in overflow bottle and radiator. Check condition of coolant to see if it's cloudy or contaminated. Check valve condition and tension. Check hoses for any leaks or wear. Check the engine exhaust for white smoke. Start the engine with the radiator cap off and look for the bubbles from the combustion in the radiator. Bubbles indicate a leak in the combustion chamber. So kapag may bubbles na nakita, is may leak daw yung ating combustion chamber. So next is we have pressure testing cooling system for leaks is usually an effective way to locate leaks. Causes coolant to leak out more quickly. Check the heater core in the passenger compartment. Then next is ensure the test is installed correctly. If you cannot find a leak and tool is verified cooling system may be leaking internally into the engine daw. Okay, so nasa loob daw yung problema kung wala tayong mahanap sa labas. Okay? So next is we have check engine oil for evidence of coolant. If coolant is not leaking into oil, it could be leaking into the cylinder. So normally engine should be off when carrying out any visual inspection of system. Possible that the leak only occurs when the engine is running. So kasi kasi nga kapag umaandar ang ating engine is, di ba, nagagalaw yung mga ano yan, liquid sa loob, di ba? Siyempre, kapag nakintulong tayo, siyempre steady lang tayo. So pag umandar yan, siyempre nagagalaw yung mga liquid sa loob. Baka doon naglalabasan yung yung mga leak natin kasi alam mo yung butas na sa taas, siyempre nasa baba, ay tulang yung sasakyan. Pag umandar, siyempre gagalaw yan, yung liquid pwedeng umangat, so pwedeng lumabas dun yung leak. So next is, if you do have to run the engine after the tester has been installed and pressurized, watch pressure gauge, keep away from rotating or hot parts. So next, pressure test the radiator cap. So a pressure tester is normally used to test cooling system for both internal and external leaks. Verify engine operating temperature if customer complains about overheating issue and underheating issue, and poor fuel economy. Verifying operating temperature involves using infrared non-contact temperature gun. So yun yung ginagamit, sinusukat yung temperature yung ginamit sa COVID. Tinitignan yung temperature mo kung mainit ka ba o Okay, next tayo. Temperature gun measures the amount of heat energy temperature of an object. Okay. Some objects do not conduct heat as well as others. A vehicle with electric fan will usually have two listed temperatures when the fan should turn on, when it should turn off. So kapag naka-turn on yung fan natin is yung init nito. Kasi sabi dito is have two listed temperatures. So kapag umaandar yung ating fan is hindi siya ganun kainit, pero pag pinatay natin, doon natin malalaman kung gano'n siya kainit talaga. Okay, so next is we have lubricating system. So a troubleshoot an engine lubricating system, begin by gathering information on the problem, ask the operator question, analyze the symptom using your understanding of system operation. You should arrive at a logical deduction about the cause of the problem. So, next tayo. The problems most often occur in the lubrication system are as follows. So ito yung mga problem natin doon. High oil consumption, oil must be added frequently. Low oil pressure or gauge reads low, indicator light glows or abnormal engine noises. High oil pressure or gauge reads high, oil filter swelled. Defective indicator or gauge circuit, inaccurate operation or readings. So next is we have, when diagnosing this trouble, make a visual inspection of the engine for obvious problems. Check oil level, damage, oil pan, or other troubles that relate to the symptoms. High oil consumption. If the operator must add oil frequently to the engine, this is a symptom of high oil consumption. External oil leakage out of the engine or internal leakage of oil into the combustion chambers causes high oil consumption. A description of each these problem is as follows as, okay, we have the internal oil leakage. Detected as darkened oil, wet areas on or around the engine. Oil may also be found in small puddles under the vehicle. Leaking gasket or seals are usually the source of external engine oil leakage. And we have here internal oil leakage shows up as blue smoke existing in the exhaust system of the vehicle. For example, if the engine piston rings and cylinders are badly worn, oil can enter the combustion chamber and will be burned during combustion. Okay? So yun lang guys. So yun ang ating lesson for today. So thank you sa pakikinig. Bye!